wasn't ready.
Yeah. Hello.
Hatter's not waiting on me tonight.
Giggity. Alright. Alright.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us once again for this, the 63rd episode
Of Drunk Doctor Who.
of Drunk Doctor Who, covering the 63rd serial of
Doctor Who.
just Doctor Who.
The Mutants.
Mutants.
Ooh.
Not the X-Men kind, but kind of like the X-Men kind.
Not really at all.
A
Well,
little.
maybe a little with the final mutant form, but yeah.
Spoilers.
Okay.
What are we drinking today, Hatter?
Well, Magma Flame. I had rum earlier, but now I'm drinking Magma Flame. And you?
Water.
Well, no, in this.
That's water. It's a vodka Sprite.
That's a vodka spray. Okay. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Alright.
Your cup's bigger than mine.
Yeah, I got the last Saint cup. Alright, so this cereal, today is the January 11th, 2021. And this serial was 6 episodes. The Mutants ran from April 8th, 1972 to, he wrote these, he got little bitty numbers, to May 13th, 1972. Our companions were Joe Grant, and the antagonists, there's actually several antagonists. The Marshal. Wait, I don't think I'd call the Administrator an antagonist in this. He was more of a victim.
The Administrator, well, yeah, he kind of had that same mindset, but then...
But he was handing
actually
everything
going
over.
to give them
And then, right, he was handing everything over, he was victim. Okay, so the antagonists were the Marshal, the Overlords, and...
I fixed the numbers.
The Marshal, the Overlords, and Varen, right? You'd call Varen an antagonist, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Varen's an antagonist.
You're pig-headed,
Oh.
stubborn.
Okay, so that'll be our antagonists. The Marshal, the Overlords, and Varen. Alright, anyway, so like I said, 6 episodes.
Does Marshall have 2 L's?
Yes. The name can have 1 L, but I believe the title has 2 L's. I think so. Doesn't have the word Marshal anywhere on this. Alright. Okay. So, in the first episode, the Doctor and Joe Grant are in the laboratory at Unit Headquarters.
Yes.
Yes. And... okay, let's pull that. Okay. There we go. Okay. You got yours and I got mine. Everybody's good.
I got mine. I'm a good mind. Was that awful?
Alright, so, and the Doctor's messing with a micro-stabilizer for the TARDIS or something like that?
Not a bomb.
Oh, no, he's messing with a micro-stabilizer. And she's hungry and she wants lunch, and then this weird seed potty thing shows up out of nowhere.
Block of obsidian.
Well, except that it's more of an egg shape than square.
Dragon egg.
Kinda.
Have you seen the dragon egg in Minecraft? We can play Minecraft.
We do play Minecraft.
We play Minecraft.
Man, so this egg, obsidian-looking egg thing shows up, and Joe goes, "Is it lunch?" Because she's really hungry. Doctor goes, "No," and she's like, "Is it a bomb?" He's like, "No." She's like, "Well, it's not very exciting, is it?" Turns out it is. It's a thing from the Time Lords that is meant to be delivered by the Doctor, and it's only used in extreme emergencies. So when a Time Lord sees this, he knows he has to deliver it. I mean, just it's of paramount importance. And
obligated to.
Yeah.
So do you think if they gave one to the monk, would he actually even, or the master? Because they're also Time Lords.
But I don't know if they would trust the master or the monk to do it, or
do
the
they
Ronnie,
trust the Doctor,
or the Ronnie. Huh?
Do they trust the Doctor?
Well, apparently.
Apparently.
Yeah. You'll meet the Ronnie later.
Why do they trust the Doctor after disenfranchising him from his time traveling exploits.
Because A, they know he's competent, and B, they know that they've got control of his TARDIS, and if he doesn't do it, they can turn it off. So, the doctor says, I'm supposed to deliver this to somebody, and she's like, who? And he says, well, I don't know. And then the TARDIS light blinks, and the doctor is like, well, apparently I've got to go in the TARDIS, and the coordinates are already preset. And the doctor goes in, and he tells Jo no, but she goes in anyway. And they get teleported to a sky base.
Sky base 1?
I don't think it's ever given a name, just sky base. So they go to the sky base, and they end up basically in a broom closet. A large storage area 4, basically a broom closet. And they make their way out thanks to the doctor's sonic screwdriver, and a little bit of bashing things.
That's how Varen got through the
that's right, it's Varen. So anyway, so they make their way out into the main corridors.
Trips an alarm.
Right. Oh,
we have the guards, Cotton and Stubbs.
Yeah, I like
but they're playing chess. They're too busy to check out the alarm.
They are playing chess. Oh, and just before this portion, Cotton and Stubbs were down with the Marshal on the planet hunting a mutant.
Right, yeah, that's the
intro.
The intro.
Yeah, so
a mutt, as they call them.
Yeah. So they're hunting down a mutant, which is a native who is mutating, and he's got these weird
it's like an exoskeleton spine that's sort of protruding.
Right. Kind of like the beginnings of a caryatid. Yeah, on his back.
And we don't know why they're mutating, but they've been experimenting on the planet.
A weird mutant hand, right?
Yeah.
So, apparently, the planet is called Solos. Solarians are the name of the people. And the Earthmen,
which explains why there's no women.
We never see a Solarian woman, do we?
They go solo.
Oh. No, we never do see a Solarian woman.
We don't see a Solarian woman. We don't see a female overlord. We don't see female Earth investigators. Jo Grant is the only lady in this whole series.
I think you're correct, yeah.
They are mentioned, though.
They're mentioned, but it's so weird not to see a single other female in the whole thing.
Female Solarians, because Varen talks about them in his village.
Yeah. Alright, so anyway, so they hunt down these mutants, these mutts, and slaughter them. And apparently the Marshal finds enjoyment in it. The Marshal is a really good bad guy and a really good actor, actually.
I liked him as well.
Yeah, he's a good actor. There's that scene in like the last episode where it's just it's on camera for a second, but the Inquisitor saying stuff, and the Marshal gives the Doctor this really mean look of, how could you lie to me and all that. Yeah, he's a good actor and he plays a good bad guy.
You'll love to hate him. It's a nice change up from the Master, because we're getting kind of burnt out on the same old Master tropes.
And you thought the Inquisitor was going to be the Master?
No. Alyssa thought that.
No,
which I thought was a neat idea.
Yeah, you said, "Oh, guess who it's gonna be?"
No, Alyssa said that.
No.
I said, "Oh, that's cool."
Okay,
but it wasn't.
All right.
The Master's not in this. Isn't he stranded?
We don't need to see him for a bit, huh?
Didn't he get stranded in the last?
Yeah, and the actor died. So we're not going to see him for a while.
But what happened to the Master and the last Master? What happened to the Master and the last Master serial? He got stranded.
Yeah.
In space, right?
Or somewhere, I forget.
I forget too.
Okay, you can look it up. All right. So anyway, turns out that they're in the 30th century, because the TARDIS registered in the 30th century. Right. It was the Empire of Earth towards the end, and the empire is contracting, much like the Roman Empire or the British Empire. In fact, there's a lot of symbolism here and allegory to the contraction and closing down of the British Empire, which they did in the 50s and 60s.
Giving colonies independence. And...
Right. It was like leave India and Pakistan, which was one state at the time, and make two states, the non-Muslim and the Muslim. India being non-Muslim, Pakistan being Muslim. They did that, and that's gone over big time in a future episode of Doctor Who with Whittaker. But also they let loose Israel, Saudi Arabia, several other places that they had this giant ass empire, and they just let go pieces of it. Like, here you go, Australia, you're good.
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong was 97. It was a bit later. But yeah, mostly in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, the British Empire was being dismantled because they couldn't afford to keep it. And
empires rise and fall.
Rise and fall. Roman Empire, British Empire, Mongolian Empire.
This is very much the plot point of this serial is Empire Earth, and they're running out of resources and manpower, so they're withdrawing from these colonization efforts. Right. So they're going to give the Solarians and Solaris their independence. And that's what the administrator was telling the Marshal. The Marshal didn't like that because the Marshal's a
megalomaniac.
Yes.
All right. So anyway, apparently Earth is a horrible place now with gray skies and gray roads and gray deserts.
So there are a couple of quotes by the Doctor that I want to ask you about.
Okay.
That first one was the Doctor says, empires rise and fall. Do you think the Time Lords are like an empire? And would they be an exception because they have just ties throughout not only space but and in time? Kind of imperialistic control over things, but they would be an exception to that rule because they time travel. Did they ever have a fall?
Okay, two things. One, they're not particularly an empire. An empire goes out and colonizes and takes over the places. Okay, they eventually
they're doing that with the timeline.
They just stay. No, they just stay in Gallifrey.
They're traveling out in the timelines.
Well, they just stay in Gallifrey, particularly in the cities. Okay, on Gallifrey. Second of all, yes, eventually Gallifrey falls, and then Gallifrey falls no more.
So that leads us to the second quote by the Doctor is, slag ash the fruits of technology. So we're in this time frame where the Empire Earth is falling apart because of their progression in technology, which has the byproduct of destruction, ash, radiation, mankind's meddlement in nature.
Alright, okay, we're going to digress for a minute. Alright, first of all, Doctor Who as a show is a bit on the left, traditionally. In modern days, it's way on the left, but traditionally it's a bit on the left, last century. And there are a lot of serials, especially in the Pertwee era, that are very much about man's damage to the environment. Remember Inferno? This one. There's another one later on where Joe Grant leaves. That's very much about man's damage to the environment. But it's a long-running theme, especially in Pertwee's era, when there was a lot of concern in the early 70s about that.
Weren't they concerned about like global cooling?
Yeah, in the mid-70s it was. In the 60s it was overpopulation, which shows up in Doctor Who frequently. In the 70s, it was global cooling. By the 80s, it was the ozone layer. By the 90s, it was global warming, which is funny because direct contradicts in global cooling.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the noughts, it was climate change, and it's still there today. They've just decided that it can cool, it can warm, whatever happens, we'll just call it climate change, which is silly because the climate changes every day, every month, every year. It's just big cycles of, ooh, in the morning it's cold, in the afternoon it's warmer, at night it's cold again. Winter it's cold, summer it's warmer, winter it's cold again, and over the course of decades and centuries it gets warmer and it gets colder. It's just larger fluctuations.
Funny enough, they had the same problem in this serial because Solaris has 500-year seasons.
We'll come to that, but yes, that's part of it. All right.
Like it's warming.
Yeah, but yeah, once again, eventually Gallifrey does fall, and then you'll learn.
So this is like foreshadowing.
Okay, and you'll understand this in about 4 years.
Okay.
But Gallifrey falls no more. Anyway, there are people watching this going, I know what he's talking about, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. Baseball. All right. So, anyway, they brought all these natives, the Solarians, up onto Skybase for a conference. Mm-hmm. And they have these conferences periodically.
There's like 2 tribes of Solarians.
Well, there seem to be a few more representatives than that, but the main 2 are Varus and Kai.
Like this warrior clan.
Yeah.
They're kind of, in service of the Marshal.
Right.
They're like his...
Okay. Apparently, the surface of the planet Solaris was green and lush when...
Like Earth.
When the overlords, Earthlings, got there 500 years ago. And it was pretty decent, but then the Marshals started doing experiments with Jaeger, scientist Jaeger, on the planet's surface. And when he did this, things started going wonky, okay? And so you start to have gray skies, much like Earth, and problems breathing and all that kind of stuff.
They also drained all the resources from the planet.
Right, the Valerian, what is it?
Some sort of radioactive gas.
Right, but what is it called? Did you write that one down?
Maybe.
Alright, like Valerian or something like that. But anyway, so eventually...
Some type of fuel, like valerium fuel.
Yeah, eventually, and this is, like I said, very much like the British Empire. It's very much a diss on the British Empire and colonialization and empires in general. Supposedly all these Solarians became more or less slaves, working in the mines, working in the factories, digging out the fuel for the Earth Empire. And then with the experiments that were being made to try and make to terraform the planet and make it habitable for Earthlings as opposed to Solarians, they created, they made it a mess, and then the mutants started showing up.
I think there's an RTS game called Empire Earth.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. So anyway,
there's a board game about terraforming Mars.
Yes, and a computer game, and they're both awesome.
What do you think a good time frame for that is? When we'll terraform Mars? If we'll terraform Mars.
I don't know if we ever will actually get there.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But
society's gonna collapse. What about the thing where you nuke the poles?
To create water?
It's supposed to warm the
planet,
the atmosphere, yeah.
I mean, it's doable, it's possible. There is ice on Mars. Like the Ice Warriors. There you go. I don't know, but I'm not 100% sure we're going to get there, especially after recent stuff.
Society's in turmoil.
I do not want to get into that.
We won't discuss it here.
Yeah, no. Everything's too raw. Alright, anyway, so apparently they're having a conference on the ship on Skybase. And the conference is between the administrator, who the Marshal answers to. He's the actual like governor of this colony, and the different Solarians. Kai is representing the outcasts, those who've been disenfranchised and run off. Varen is representing those who are working with the overlords, the Earthlings, to hunt down and kill the mutants and other things. He's representing the collaborators. And they head to the conference, and then we see one of Varen's guards. Yeah, is starting to mutate, so they hunt him down and kill him. How many deaths did we have in this serial?
9 people on screen, 2 off screen, 2 mutants, and then several thousand mutants off screen.
Children's show, let's kill thousands. And they talk of genocide throughout the entire thing.
Yeah, it's a very heavy-handed, what would you call that? It's a heavy theme.
Themed, yeah, show. Okay, so they're going to have this conference, and Kai's got his people, and Varen's got his people, and the Marshal finds out from the administrator that they're going to pull back and head back to Earth. That it's done. The Solarians are going to have their independence. We're leaving. It's over.
Which is going to destroy the Marshal's career. Because it's what he's been working on this whole time.
Correct.
And we get a sense that the administrator's not a big fan of the Marshal. Because he's like, we'll find you some clerical work. You'll be fine.
Department of Records.
Yeah.
But the Marshal is just a real Hanyak, a real bad guy, megalomaniac, narcissistic. He's just horrible. And so he gets with Varen, and they get somebody they trust, which is Varen's son, to assassinate the administrator.
Blow dart necklace.
Right, blow dart right into the neck. During the conference in which the administrator is going to declare that they're giving back Solaris to the Solarians, or Solus to the Solarians, and Kai and them are like, rabble-rousing.
If just shut up.
If they would just shut up, he would have given it to them. But they don't, and then he's assassinated. And then the Marshal, who I guess is next in command, declares martial law. And Kai and them escape on the transporters back down to the surface of the Earth.
Joe Grant and the Doctor still have this orb.
Right.
They just missed Kai.
No, they just barely get there, and the orb kind of opens as Kai leaves.
Oh, it's like it's for Kai. So Joe Grant runs after him.
Well, first they're captured. Remember, they were first captured, and the administrator and the Marshal tell them they've got to open up the pod. But the Doctor says, well, we can't open up the pod.
Before the
Right. So that happened first. It's like, we're sent here to deliver this, but we can't open it up. Only the person who can have it opens it up. And he hands it to the administrator, who it doesn't open. Hands it to the Marshal, it doesn't open. He says, well, you should take it to the conference. Somebody should open it up. They finally get to the conference, and Cotton's standing there outside, the guard.
Yeah, they had to break out to get to the conference.
Correct. They broke out.
So they pinched Stubbs' neck.
Yeah, Stubbs. Okay, love Stubbs and Cotton. They're great. They're two of the best characters in the thing.
They have a great relationship. They're like these buddy guards.
They do, yeah.
Marshall's right hand.
They do. They're great.
You get the sense of,
camaraderie.
They're likable characters.
Rapport. Yeah.
There's an alarm going off, but we're playing chess. We're busy.
There's just probably some malfunction. So anyway, the Doctor's talking to Cotton, tall guard right outside the door, and he's like, look, everything's in here we need. We just got to get in. And then as Kai is escaping from the conference after everything goes awry with the administrator being assassinated, he brushes by the egg and it kind of opens and the doctor's like, that's the guy it's for. And Joe Grant runs after him. And the doctor's kind of standing there for a bit, which is oddly enough unlike him, but I guess it works for the plot. And Kai grabs her and kind of uses her as I did not like. Everything else Kai did was great. That was not so great. But he uses her kind of as a shield. They get to the transporter, they transport down to the surface.
Kai has a very negative outlook on all overlords.
Well, yeah.
He didn't know Joe Grant was not an overlord. So
right.
To be fair, he had a lot of hatred for...
And to be fair, the overlords are earthlings, and Joe Grant is an earthling. He just didn't know that she was not a specific overlord. And of course, he thinks the doctor's one, but the doctor's not an overlord and not an earthling.
Is a character development thing where he finds out Joe's a good person, the doctor's a good person, Stubbs and Cotton are good people.
Alright, so
you see him grow as a person.
Yeah, it's actually really cool. Like I said, this is actually a really good and I think highly overlooked serial.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Great villains.
Yeah,
cool characters.
Good acting. Very good acting.
Good acting.
Very good acting.
Interesting plot.
Good pacing. Only the 6th episode is a little weird.
Yeah,
because of the trial stuff. Well, I don't know if filler. It needed to be done, but the trial, when everything else was going on and more action, is a little weird. Yeah, but besides that, it's very good. So anyway, the guards shoot at the transporter. They just managed to get out before the blast hit.
It's a recurring theme.
Several times. And that's the end of episode 1.
Yes.
Okay. So they get down to the planet. They manage to escape from the transporter room. But she's going to have a very hard time breathing. But she insists on going with them anyway.
Because the atmosphere is poisonous to humans.
Correct. And she's human.
But only during the day. The daylight that makes the soils become toxic.
Correct. At night, it's much bad. It's not so bad inside where the sunlight doesn't.
It's not a firestorm.
Okay, well, we'll get to the firestorms later.
Firestorm, super metal.
Alright.
That's episode 3.
Magma Flame. Because life's too short for bad tasting alcohol. Alright.
Too long for good tasting alcohol.
Wait, what? No.
Can't afford it.
Can't afford it. It's only like $20 a bottle. It's great. A handle.
Really? That's $20?
$20.
That's a steal.
I know. It's awesome. You get drunk like 4 times on that. $5 a drunk. That's great. You ever want to hire me as a spokesperson, Magma Flame? I'll just work for the alcohol.
At $20 a handle, I don't think they can afford you.
Easily.
They'll do it for free.
No, I want.
Oh, you'll get paid.
I want to get paid in the Magma Flame, yeah. Alright, 2nd episode. Kai, who, to be fair, Varen looks very much like the bad guy in Conan.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks like the bad guy in Conan.
Short, angry eyebrows.
Right.
Warrior.
Stout, thick warrior type. Middle-aged. Kai looks young, idealistic, much like Prince Valiant, both in clothes and hair and face. He is much more the ideologue. Ideologue.
Idealistic.
Yeah, idealistic individual, ideologue.
Varen is an anti-log.
No, he's doing what he can, what he knows. He's very much a warrior.
Fighting.
He's a warrior.
Killing.
Okay, so Kai runs off, and Joe Grant's with him, and Kai's like, "Look, I can't stop for you. I can't come back for you. My life is more important to my people than yours." she goes with them anyway, and they are running through everything, being chased. In the meantime,
you got Varen's son being called into the office with the marshal, and he's like, "What? I've been held as a prisoner. Why is this? We're acting on your orders." He's like, "Here is your reward." You ever see Aladdin and Jafar, and Aladdin captures your eternal reward, and he goes to kill. There's very much a scene like that out of Aladdin.
I've seen Aladdin.
He's like, "Here's your reward," and he shoots him with the dart gun that he used to assassinate the.
I've seen Aladdin. Wait, you're talking about the original, right?
Yeah, the animated one. Jafar is disguised as the old guy, and he gets Aladdin.
The stupid ass parrot, and Robin Williams as as Aladdin.
Yeah, as Genie.
Yeah.
Gilbert Godfrey as Iago. Love that character. And then you have Jafar, and he's disguised as the old guy. He gets Aladdin to get the lamp. The sand case collapsing. He's like, "Give me your hand." He's like, "The lamp."
Yeah.
And then he takes the lamp, and he's like, "Here is your reward." And he pulls out a dagger. "Your eternal reward." And he goes to kill him.
Yeah.
It's a scene like that. It's like, "It's your reward." And he shoots Varen's son.
Varen's son. So
Varen walks in on this.
Right after.
Like, "You just shot my son." He's like, "Yeah, deal with it." He's like, "I'm not going to deal with it." And he goes to enact his revenge.
He didn't even say, "Yeah, I shot him." He says, "Oh, first he went after the administrator, and then he came after me."
So, Hanya.
Yeah, Hanya. So the marshal's gone mad. And he's turned on Varen, and he kills Varen's son outright, like children's show. So he sends people to go after Joe and Kai. K-Y, Kai. Like KY jelly. So they're going through the mist. Joe falls because she can't breathe.
Yeah.
And Kai, to his benefit, goes back and he picks her up, even though he said he would leave her. And he carries her for a long ways. But he eventually gets to the caves. Just before that, he waits, and they get caught up to by some of the guards hunting them down. And he karate chops one of the guards, knocks him out, the overlords, and takes the mask so that Joe can breathe. Then he gets her into the cave, and then he does the really old-fashioned style of CPR, where you take the arms, you go in and out. This is from the 60s and early 70s. The more modern technique would be, pumping the heart and breathing their mouth, but I think they did this partly because it was a time frame where that would have been the thing, and partly because they didn't want to show a man pushing down on a woman's chest.
Depression.
Or, well, yeah, but on her chest where her breasts are, or giving her mouth to mouth. So I think they did that. And she recovers and comes to.
In England, they teach you the recovery position. When you find someone incapacitated, you're supposed to set them in a certain way. It's not a thing in America. I don't know why they do it. It's just a weird disconnect. It's a cultural thing, apparently. Apparently it's supposed to help you recover while you're incapacitated.
Okay.
Something about airways.
So
in America, you see a passed out drunk, you're like, yeah. Drag him out of the street, he'll be fine.
Yeah, choke on his own vomit, yeah. Have you ever seen Spinal Tap?
No.
Okay, where's the list? Right,
it's hard to...
This is Spinal Tap.
This is Spinal Tap?
This is Spinal Tap. There's a line in there. Yeah, he choked on vomit, but it wasn't his own vomit.
Ew.
That's a line in the movie. This is Spinal Tap. Why do you have Hatter and Holden written on the back part of that sheet several times?
That's when we were writing our names backwards and with our left hand.
Yeah.
I don't remember why we were doing
that. We were drunk. That's why we were doing that. And try it left-handed.
There was something that happened in the episode that made us try things writing upside down.
That made you make us try writing things upside down.
Something was in code, and you had to combine the pieces of paper. It was the doctor was making a thing, and you had to combine the paper to see the outline. It reminded me of Da Vinci and how he wrote backwards, and it looked like scribbles, but then he'd hold it up
to the mirror.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, just like the people can write backwards. And then we started writing backwards, and then left-handed, and then upside down.
I remember that.
So that's why that's
I remember that. Alright. Okay, so anyway, so the marshal forces the doctor to try and open up the egg because he wants to know what's in there. And he takes the doctor and says, look, can you open this? And the doctor says, well, maybe with the right equipment. And he takes the doctor to Jaeger's laboratory where there's all of this equipment. And he says, well, maybe I can open it up because the marshal really wants to find out what's in that egg, what was so important. And he says, look, Joe Grant's not going to last long out there. I can intensify the search or I can call them off. And Doctor's like, okay, I will help open up the egg if you search heavily for Joe Grant. And the marshal's like, okay, intensify the search for the people. And Doctor's like, right, there's like, Marshal, he's like, and the woman shall not be harmed. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Varen has gone into hiding on the sky base in the botanical section.
Slightly later, but yeah.
No, this happened because...
Well, no, the doctor's got to get to the laboratory before that happens.
The doctor wants to be in on the mutant hunt.
Right.
They accuse Varen of being a mutant just as an excuse to hunt him down.
Right.
But he wanted revenge for his son dying. So Marshall called the guards, and he makes his escape, and he hides in the... What do they call it?
Herbarium.
Herbarium.
Alright. But anyway, so in the meantime...
What's the difference between a herbarium and like a...
Arboreum?
Garden or a greenhouse or a menagerie?
I guess a greenhouse would be more for plants and a herbarium would be more for herbs. Maybe? I don't know. And
you'll have to ask the people in Colorado.
Dude, it's legal in most of the states now, or in some form or fashion.
CBD is legal, yeah. Not the THC part.
You know, even here in Texas, it's quasi-legal.
CBD.
Yeah, CBD, but there's a problem. CBD or pot, it costs $250,000 to determine if it's CBD or pot, and most counties don't want to pay that money to try and prosecute somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't. So it's de facto quasi-legal, you know?
Oh.
But they've passed it through the House to make it legal federally, and it'll eventually pass the Senate, and it'll just be legal federally, and then most states will make it legal statewide as well.
In this day and age, you're guilty until proven innocent, so that they just...
Yeah, I have a hard time arguing with that, but it's getting bad.
It's a feeling that the burden of proof would be more on the defendant if the government decided you're going to jail for that.
Well, no, for those
they'll
kind of
do
things,
a field
they still
test,
have to do it, yeah.
Which will test positive.
I certainly don't bother with it, but I have no clue. This is not legal advice. No idea. Anyway, so okay.
Varen's hiding out with the wheat plants on the ship.
We're not quite to... Hold on. In the meantime, Kai and Joe get to the caves.
Yes.
Kai revives Joe, you know, with that swimming method thing.
Yeah.
And he explains to Joe what's going on about the experiments on the planet from Jaeger and several other things. And
it's
then
a German name.
Jaeger, yeah, it's very German. And he's a German scientist, yeah. And what about Skarsgård, or whatever his name is later on? That's very Swedish.
Sondergaard.
Sondergaard.
Yeah.
Very Swedish. But anyway, so...
Ischen Hirschen Herd.
Eastbound Harmony.
Leif Erikson Day.
Yeah. Okay, so they're in the caves, and then a mutant kind of comes in, and he takes the torch from the fire and, waves the mutant away. They go further in, and there's a bunch more mutants. And he puts Joe in a safe place, but they get attacked by a bunch more mutants.
Yeah.
And that's where episode 2 ends, right?
No, Jaeger's hiding in her laboratory.
Not Jaeger.
Not Jaeger. Varen. The doctor's in the laboratory with Jaeger. The marshal comes in. They have a whole conversation about the doctor trying to open up the box with reversing the whatever.
Reversing? No. Not reversing the polarity for a change. Reversing the particles. So close, but no cigar.
The marshal's organizing their mutant hunt of Varen, and the doctor says, "I want to come." And then he and Stubbs find Varen in the arboretum,
Herborium.
The greenhouse.
Yeah.
The wheat house. And then there's a struggle, and the doctor convinces Stubbs not to shoot Varen because
after he disarms Varen.
Yeah, there's no sign of mutation.
Mm-hmm.
So then Stubbs, being the smart lad he is, he's like, well, then what's going on here? Why are we doing a mutant hunt of a non-mutant? So that's where he starts to pick up on there's some shady stuff going on.
You're right.
So he's like, we're gonna help you escape. So the doctor says, well, I can cause a distraction. There'll be a power outage. You need to reroute the power to emergency backup. And then that's when Varen can get back to the planet's surface. So you say, okay. So the doctor goes to the lab.
Wait, is this episode 2?
This is episode 2.
Wait.
Orchestrates,
what about Cotton telling the doctor that they didn't find Joe? Is that still episode 2?
That's 3.
Okay, that's 3.
So the doctor orchestrates his scientific... The doctor orchestrates a scientific experiment to turn the orb inside out, but really he's orchestrating...
the first one he does is actually somewhat successful.
Yeah. But he's doing another experiment, but really it's an excuse to cause a power outage as a distraction.
Correct. No. At some... wait. That's episode 3. No.
Because this one ends with...
because he got Cotton to help him... Because Cotton was told by Marshall that we found Joe Grant, right? And the Cotton tells the doctor they found her and she's in the hospital down on the planet. And then Cotton goes to the doctor, sending Jaeger away. And the doctor, and he tells the doctor, look, we didn't find Joe. Look, I was made to tell you that by the Marshal.
Yeah.
And this is what's going on. And then the doctor enlists his help to connect the stuff, to create the diversion so they can all get away. Yeah. That's all episode 3.
No, episode 2 ends with Varen making his escape during the distraction. And then for some reason he puts the doctor in a chokehold and they walk into the teleporter. And that's when the episode ends.
Okay, so the stuff with Joe Grant in the cave hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, that's episode 3.
Okay. There's a lot going on, people. Alright.
So episode 2 ends with Varen making his escape back to the surface. He still doesn't trust the doctor, even though the doctor helped him escape. So he puts him in a chokehold and uses him as a shield, just like Joe Grant.
So Stubbs and Cotton are, even though they're overlords, human overlords, are good guys. It's shown by Stubbs talking about wanting to leave as soon as possible with Joe and the doctor. And of course, Cotton doing what he does. They're forced into lies by the Marshal.
Even exonerated in the preface of the serial where they're doing the mutant hunt.
Yeah,
but Stubbs shows up after the mutant died of unknown causes, which we're assuming one of the soldiers just shot it before.
The Marshal.
Yeah, the Marshal shot it, and then Stubbs shows up, and the Marshal's like, "Oh no, he's dead."
Right. So
they're not bad people.
Yeah, no, those two are really good people. So, then, alright, so Cotton goes to the doctor and says, hey, this isn't really the thing, Joe hasn't been found. The doctor's like, well, I've got to find her and Kai, but can you help me hook all this up? And Cotton goes, yeah. And then Jaeger comes back and says, I wasn't supposed to see the marshal. What are you talking about? You know? Stubbs sent him off to see the marshal.
What?
No. Cotton sent Jaeger off to see the marshal. And then he talks to the doctor in the meantime. And then he comes back, yeah. It's like, I'm supposed to see the marshal. So then...
That happens when he gets back from the surface.
Right. And then he's talking with Stubbs and finding out that Varen's in the deal. And so the doctor tells Cotton to go fix this automatic transference backup system, make sure it's okay, and to tell Stubbs to tell Varen that's when they're going to go. And then the doctor causes the overload by switching out all the wires, and gets Jaeger caught in it, and Jaeger falls unconscious. The doctor leaves, Varen leaves, and they go to the teleport, and they teleport down to the surface with Varen holding the doctor in a chokehold, and that's the end of episode 2.
So episode 3.
They get down to the surface, and the doctor uses Venusian Fu on Varen and gets him to promise to take the doctor
on your warrior's honor.
On your warrior, the word of a warrior, to take him to Kai.
Yeah. He says, well, the surface is poisonous, he can't make it. And the doctor's poisonous.
I'm not an
earthlings. Yeah. Which, I mean, I thought the doctor was susceptible to poison.
Some types of poison. Not all types of poison.
Okay.
So, they go down the surface, and Varen leads the doctor to the caves where Kai and Joe Grant are.
Yeah, but they weren't at the entrance. They saw the fire that they built, but they headed further into the entrance. Because the firestorms were driving all the mutants to the caves.
Well, there's no firestorms yet.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't seen one yet.
I thought...
That's an episode or 2 later, I think.
I wrote it down in episode 3, I don't know why.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we might be there then. No, you're right.
Because Joe has an acid trip. Doctor poison resistance.
Okay, no, you're right about the firestorms. Firestorms happen in episode 3. Okay, there's a bit of lag here. Okay, so there's firestorms are happening.
What firestorms are again to deal with the experiments that Jaeger and the Marshal have been doing on the planet's surface. So they've been getting worse, and they happen at night. And there's like phosphorus discharges fire, and the mutants hate fire apparently. So that's driving all the mutants further into the cave. They're becoming more concentrated, more aggressive.
But they're also being drawn there.
Yeah. We find that out. Kai normally, he's like, oh, they're harmless, and he can wave them off with a fiery torch, which he did the first one, but he can't this time. So
but it took a bit of effort with the first one.
Yeah, so he's like, I don't know why they're being so aggressive. So they retreat further into the cave, where they're supposed to be safe. But there are tons of mutants there, so he's trying to fend them off with the torch. He sticks Grant in the corner, in the safe place.
And she ends up running off.
Yeah. At the same time, we have Varen and the doctor arriving at the cave entrance. They see the fire that they made, but there's no sign of Kai and Joe Grant. So Varen's like, don't go in there. Mutants are in there. And then the doctor's like, you scared of the dark?
Varen goes, yeah.
You scared of the dark? He's like,
I'm not scared of anything.
I'm scared of nothing. The doctor goes,
good. You'll follow me.
I hear it. Let's go.
Yeah. So they go in, and they eventually find Kai, and Kai's like, well, I put Joe here. I don't know what happened to her.
I stuck her right here. Where'd she...
Well, after they rescued Kai, Kai was about to be overwhelmed, but the doctor and Varen save him.
They beat off the...
Right, they move back them all. And
the mutants are a lot more receptive to 2 more people showing up.
Well, when you get 1, they think they can overwhelm them. You get 4, they don't think they can. And the Doctor was very forceful with his voice and waved them off. And to be fair, the mutants are understanding, we find out, of language and everything.
And Baron had a sword.
And Baron had a sword.
Anyway, I also had a sword, he just didn't use it ever.
Right.
Because he likes the mutants.
He does. So, the Doctor and Baron wave off the mutants, they rescue Kai, and Baron's like, I was betrayed by the Marshal. He killed my son.
I think I can smell his cinnamon.
Maybe.
So something smells like cinnamon.
Yeah, well, it's probably the magnifier.
So Kai's like, great, good. The enemy of my enemy, we can work together.
He's like, I don't need you. It's like, oh, dude, seriously.
Men.
Varen. Okay, so Varen's like, I don't need you. I'll do it on my own. And he leaves. And I was like, Varen. So the Doctor's there with Kai. And he says, where's Joe Grant? I can't leave without Joe. And Kai's like, well, I left her here. She must have run off because she was frightened. So they start searching the caves.
This is where they had this whole conversation. So they fight off the mutants, they rescue Kai, they have that conversation, Varen walks off, the Doctor talks to Kai about the box opens, they look at the tablets.
Oh yeah.
They discuss them, and then they're like, oh yeah, where's Joe? He's like, I left her there. 20 minutes ago.
So there's 4 tablets with hieroglyphs on them.
I thought it was oddly paced how Joe was the last thing they thought of.
Well, I mean,
you're stuck in this corner with all the mutants, but hey, let's talk about this box.
To be fair, the Doctor wanted to get this egg to him. He says, and the Doctor really says, I came here to find Joe. And to give you this.
So here's the egg.
Yeah, here's the egg. And it opens up with these weird 4 tablets.
Yeah. Discussing it. Weird squigglies. I don't know how to read them. They're the old ones.
Hieroglyphics.
Some of them written on the caves.
Okay, right, and
I can't read.
And Varen's there. They're talking about that. He says,
but there's a scientist.
Huh?
But the scientist might read it.
Scholar. Yeah.
He said there's one that came and studied the symbols.
Right. And the human Scarsher. But they're talking about the hieroglyphics, and there's one on the cave wall directly behind them where they're talking about it. It's like, crystal, look behind you. It's right there. So, eventually, Varen leaves. And
he goes back to his warrior village.
And the Doctor's left with Kai, and they're looking for Joe Grant. In the meantime, I have a hole in my sock, yes. In the meantime, Joe had wandered off to a particular part of the caves that was too irradiated.
And she's tripping balls, man. She's seeing lights. And what do you call those scopes that you turn on and they have all the crystals in the mirrors?
Oh,
something scope, periscope.
No.
Rotoscope. Something scope. You know, you get them for Christmas.
Kaleidoscope.
Kaleidoscope, yeah.
Kaleidoscope.
It looks like that. There's colors and patterns. She sees a spaceman walking towards her in slow motion.
And she faints. Boom.
And she passes out.
Alright. So the spaceman takes and he hauls her to a safe place.
We don't know that yet.
Well, we don't know that yet, but
we just know she wakes up somewhere else.
So the Doctor and Kai are looking for her. Eventually they find her. The Doctor's like, we've got to find her. 3 steps later, oh, there she is. You know?
And she's going, yeah. He's like, wait, I hear something.
Right. In the meantime,
the sets are only so big.
Right. In the meantime, the Marshal has decided that he's going to blow up the caves with all the mutants in them.
Yeah, and in the meantime, Varen makes it back to his warrior village. And pulls this poor old man out of bed and throws him and says, go ring a gong. He's like, There's no one here. Ring the gong!
Okay, so...
This old man is mutating too. He has the weird spine.
Yeah.
He rings the warrior gong.
Alright, you keep talking. I'm going to get a refill. Some ice. Some ice.
That's right there.
And the restroom.
That's right there.
Ice. The restroom's not right there. You keep talking. You guys
You're
think
drinking
4
it,
into 5 or so. Yeah. Alright.
Alright, so in the meantime, the Marshal decides,
I'll do that.
screw these guys. We have the mutants in the cave. We have Kai in the cave. We have this doctor and Joe Grant and all these people we don't really want in the cave. Let's knock out 4 or 5 birds with one stone. Let's gas the cave and, you know, force people out. At least that's the plan he presents. But really, he brings along explosives to seal in the entrances. He's like, we're going to kill everybody in the cave. So he organizes this whole task force. He goes down to the planet surface. They're gassing the caves, which is pushing all the mutants more into the cave. Stubbs and Cotton were there. And they're like, hey, Yeager said that we needed the doctor for, you know, research and stuff. So they're like, can we search for him? Give us 15 minutes. And they're like, he's like, yeah, go search for the doctor. And they're like, okay, cool. And they did that because, you know, they're in league with the doctor. They know that Marshall's up to some sketchy, shady stuff. So they want to go make sure that he's okay. And they're trying to, you know, come up with some sort of plan. But the Marshal really knows that, you know, hey, these guys are supposed to be my right-hand men, but they let, you know, Varen escape, they let Kai escape, they never found Joe, they let the doctor escape. I think they're in league, or they're up to something, so I'm going to seal him in the cave. So he doesn't wait the 15 minutes he agreed to let them search the cave. He starts gassing it, and he seals off the cave entrances. So Cotton and Stubbs come across the doctor, and Kai doesn't like that because they're overlords, and he's still finding out that not all overlords, not all earthlings are bad people. You know, you can't really judge a book by its cover just because they're part of this faction that wrongs your people. You know, there's still some good people. So he sees these 2 people in overlord outfits, and he goes to fight them. He draws a sword, and the doctor goes, wait, no, these guys are good. They help, you know, help us escape, yada, yada, yada. So at this point, we have this whole group. We've reunited Joe and the doctor and Kai and Cotton and Stubbs, and they're all in the cave. And Joe woke up, and they're like, what happened, Joe? And she's like, I don't know, I passed out. I fainted. I got to some weird part of the cave, and I guess someone drugged me here. So, so they're making their escape, but then, oh no, there's gas. There's gas in the chamber. We can't go out that way. Well, I guess we'll have to go deeper, and then everything starts rumbling because the explosives are going off. They're sealing in the entrances, and then they see the spaceman waving them, waving them in. He looks like a weird dorky spaceman, but really it's a radioactive suit. And guess who? It's the researcher scientist, Sondergaard. So they're like, well, we don't really have another choice, so let's go follow this guy who's waving us towards safety. And Sondergaard leads them to his lead underground base. And the reason it's made out of lead is because there's a lot of radiation in the cave.
Hey,
which,
Sondergaard.
you know, not really a dangerous amount of radiation if you're just there for, you know, a little bit, but he lived in the cave for years and years, so that's why he had to make the lead research facility, and he has to wear the spacesuit. So, in the meantime, Joe and Grant and Stubbs and Cotton.
Joe and Grant?
Joe and the doctor and Stubbs and Cotton are fine. But he has the lead base, and yeah, the caves kind of, the entrances are being sealed off, so the cave's kind of crumbling in on itself. It's becoming unstable. There are a lot of cave-ins, collapses, earthquakes. But Sondergaard and the doctor start talking about the tablets they found and start doing some research about the seasons.
Right. They start figuring out the cycle of regeneration, of metamorphosis for the Solarans.
Yeah.
But
then Stubbs and Cotton are getting real freaked out. They're like, that's not the explosives anymore. This cave's just shifting.
The mountain is breaking down.
Yeah, so the doctor goes, okay, you guys make it to safety, you know, find an exit.
Take Joe. Yeah.
Sondergaard and I are going to stay here and
Take Joe and Kai.
Okay. We're going to figure out these tablets. So, Marshall is outside the cave, and he goes to his men. He goes, continue sealing off all the entrances to the cavern. They're like, you don't get it. These caverns go on for miles. We'd be down here for weeks sealing entrances.
Like, do it.
He's like, do it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, as a bad guy, he's a pretty good one.
He gets his hands dirty.
He does. He gets his hands dirty. He sets the charges to explode the entrances.
Something about a really good bad guy that just gets in and does things himself. Kind of like if you ever saw Breaking Bad.
No.
Okay. Well, there's this one guy who's a bad guy. He's really great because his name is Gus. And you kind of see him as a kingpin. He's like the mastermind of it all. He has these henchmen. And then you see him get his hands dirty and you're like, oh yeah, he's super evil. It's this cool moment where you're just like, oh, that guy's...
So that's the dad from Malcolm in the Middle, right?
No. That's... it's a different person.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just know the
different
dad
character.
from Malcolm in the Middle.
He is in it. He's the main character.
Okay. He's the Breaking Bad guy.
He's the guy that broke bad.
Okay.
Alright. So we're in the... they escape the research facility, saw the doctor, and the researcher saw Sondergaard. Got the tablets, figuring it out. Marshall goes back up to the...
Did you tell him what the tablets meant?
I haven't really talked about the tablets yet.
So, your turn?
Yeah, my turn.
Okay. So the tablets, there's 4 stone tablets, and they're about yay big. And the tablets are inscribed with a sun cycle and different meanings on each of them. The sun cycle. And Sondergaard and the doctor eventually figure out that it's a cycle of life, that it's the seasons, the 4 seasons. Doctor proposes air, fire, earth, water, the elements, and Sondergaard's like, no. And the doctor's like, well, what about seasons? And Sondergaard's like, well, this particular planet does not have a tilt on its axis, so it's straight up and down. So there are no seasons. The doctor's like, well, what about distance from the sun? Sondergaard's like, well, it takes 2,000 years for this planet to travel around the sun. So the doctor's like, well, that's 500 years a season. And Sondergaard's like, well, it's possible. They figure out that the metamorphosis, the change, the mutations that are going on are the change from the one season, spring, which they're in, have been in for 500 years, to summer. And the only reason the Solarans don't remember this is because their records have been destroyed by the overlords, the Earthlings. And part of the reason that the transformation has been problematic is because of the acceleration to the mutations, to the changes that are being caused by the experiments from Jaeger and the Marshall. So the doctors are like, okay, take me to the place where the radiation is coming from. And he gets Sondergaard to take him there. And Sondergaard is in his full lead-lined suit, but he can only go so far, and he collapses. The doctor goes further, being a Time Lord rather than a human, and he finds this weird green rock in the hands of some odd angelic statue, and takes the rock, and then he saves Sondergaard and takes him out, and he and Sondergaard end up traveling through the wastes, through Solanus, until they manage to get up to the, well, they get halfway to the transform stations, transmat stations, and Sondergaard's like, I can't go on. Leave me, doctor. I'll make my way back to the caves. And the doctor says, okay, so be it. And he leaves Sondergaard. He heads back to the transformer stations, and Sondergaard heads back to the caves, eventually. And the doctor transforms and he gets back up to the starship thingy. I can't remember what it's called. Skyship 1 or whatever. And he's recaptured by the Marshal, who had already captured Joe, Cotton, Stubbs, and Kai, and had tied them all to the speaker's podium with some really heavy-duty shackles. But then he goes off to deal with Jaeger and sets a guard on them. But Kai manages to get Joe Grant out of her shackles, and when the guard comes close, when she pretends to have fainted, she grabs his gun and turns it on him, and then she rescues Stubbs, Cotton, and Kai. And she gets the doctor's she gets the keys to all of them, and she gets the doctor's sonic screwdriver back, because the doctor had managed to get up to the station and was trying to rescue them with a sonic screwdriver, and was caught by the Marshal and some guards, and he was taken off to help Jaeger. And they took the sonic screwdriver from him. So you have Jaeger, Professor Jaeger, and the doctor, and they're trying to set up a system wherein they can take the rockets. I don't know if you talked about the rockets. Okay, the rockets were shot down onto Solos in an attempt to have them explode in the atmosphere and create an atmosphere that was viable for humans as opposed to Solarians. But they didn't work. None of them worked because they were all old and bad. They didn't do a thorough investigation of them or inspection of them. So, in the meantime, the inspector's coming. And Joe Grant's like, well, you didn't think we didn't know the inspector. We know him because he's on the way, because we're here in an advanced unit for the inspector. And the Marshal's like, oh, well, you know what? We'll make the planet just as it was before we sent down all these problematic ionization crystals that screwed up the planet. So he gets the doctor to help Jaeger. The doctor creates this machine by taking the transformation unit, and it will reverse the problems the ionization crystals had on the planet one sector at a time. They go through and they reverse those processes so that the planet can be green again and get rid of the ionization crystals' problematic effects and return the nitrate rate to what it was before the ionization crystals hit the atmosphere. Okay.
This is like a confusing episode.
Sprite and vodka?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
A lot of.
Cheers.
Cheers. This is a confusing cereal. A lot of sci-fi.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot of back and forth in the beginning, from the surface to the sky base.
Okay, so
A lot of interweaving plots.
correct.
We discover that mutation.
It was really good.
The mutation is really a natural evolution of the Solarians the whole time.
I mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Okay, so I'm up to like somewhere towards the end of episode 5, where
Earth Investigator.
not quite yet.
Oh.
Okay. So
Did you get the distrust call? Or the firing squad?
close. Hold on.
Okay.
So anyway, the doctor is helping Jaeger to reverse what's going on because the Marshal has Joe Grant and Cotton and Kai held prisoner. In the meantime, there's a firing squad sent in to execute the 4 of them: Kai, Joe Grant, Cotton, and Stubbs. They had to postpone it, and then the guard, like I said, they escaped.
They had to postpone it.
But eventually they take over the guard. They escape, and they're holding off the other guards at the doorway, the portal, and Stubbs is hit. And Stubbs goes down and dies.
He's holding him off at the doorway, and he dies. It's super tragic, and it's sad because we all love Stubbs. But he bought Joe Grant enough time to grab the marshal's radio and send out a distress call.
Right, to the inspector.
To Hyperion.
Yeah, to the Hyperion, the inspector. And they run away through another exit, but they're eventually caught. And the three of them, Cotton, Joe, and Kai, are sent down to the radiation chamber.
For holding, which is basically
just waiting to die.
Yeah.
So they're in the radiation chamber, and the Marshal tells the doctor, "I'll release them as soon as you finish making the planet habitable for human life and not Solana's life." Right.
Time frame.
And they're down there in the radiation chamber, and Cotton's like, "Oh my gosh, the radiation will come through, and we'll be burned to a crisp."
Because the reason is because the Earth investigators showing up.
Right.
And that's where they dock. And the radiation room is like the refueling rod that goes into the ship that's docked to refuel it. And that's what would evaporate them, is that, what you can call it, fuel. A highly
delirium or whatever.
Whatever they extracted from the planet.
Okay, so...
What do you call an alligator in a vest?
In a vest?
In a vest.
Investigator.
An investigator.
It's horrible. I hate it.
The Earth investigator shows up.
The investigator shows up, and he's got a whole.
It looks like a powdered wig, but it's made of copper. Yeah.
He's there with about.
He shows up with a guard.
5 or 6 other investigators, guards, and they put the Marshal's soldiers under wrap.
They take their guns and they put them on.
Oh, nice, right?
Yeah.
So,
rooms.
Okay. In the meantime, Skarsgård,
the insertion rod. Oh.
Sondergaard has gotten back to the caves and has convinced the mutants that they need to help him find the doctor, so the doctor can help them mutate into what they need to mutate into.
Yes.
And so he leads several of them to the transmat beam, and there's no guards there because they're all being held captive. And then they go up into the Skyship 1, whatever it's called.
Well, the Earth investigator ship docks to refuel. It inserts its fueling rod, which is very phallic and.
Of course.
So they have, it's inserting it into the radiation room where Kai, Cotton, and Joe Grant are.
Right. And
so they have this.
Jump in it.
Yeah, they have this narrow window
to get out before
work their way through the shaft before the fuel comes through.
So they crawl through the shaft.
And they escape. And they break into the. Well, the Earth investigators investigating. Marshal Nibs. Says to the doctor, "You better play along or we're going to kill Joe Grant." So tell them that the mutation's natural, or...
Right, so the investigator's there and he asks a bunch of questions.
It's the mutation's irreversible.
And the doctor plays along because he doesn't want them to die, but he doesn't know they've escaped.
Yeah, and then they force their way into the trial room.
Well, eventually, but so the doctor plays along with what the Marshal has to say, what Yeager has to say, and
talk about the look.
The look?
The look he gives him.
Oh, there's one, well I said that earlier, there's one scene where the Marshal gives the doctor this horrible look when he realizes the doctor does not know the investigator, was not sent there by the investigators. It's on screen for like half a second, but it's wonderful.
It was like, or else look, because that's when the investigator asks the doctor.
But
the Marshall's like, you better play along.
Right, but it's also the look of absolute hatred of how dare you have lied to me during this time, you know? Because Joe Grant had led with the fact that they knew they were basically there at the behest of the investigator, ahead of the investigator to corroborate what the investigator was going to find.
Right.
But then they get there, and the doctor doesn't know the investigator doesn't know the doctor.
Right.
So he's looking at the doctor like, how dare you have misled me on this? And it's just a half second, but it's wonderful. Okay.
Good bad guy.
He is. He's really good bad. This is a really underrated serial. So, anyway, what's his face?
Joe and Kai and Cotton break into the room.
Well, they do. That's not what I'm talking about. But yeah. So, Joe, Cotton, and Kai manage to escape through the proboscis of the Hyperion. They get out, and they get back into the Sky 1, what's it called?
Skybase 1.
Skybase 1. They get back into it, and they finally, right as the investigator's about to pronounce sentence on everything, they break in and they go, hey, we have evidence of the contrary.
Shows up, and then the doctor goes,
yep,
you forced me to play along because he's...
Right, and these are the witnesses you wanted for the other side, and I accuse him pointing at the marshal and him pointing at Professor Yeager of heinous atrocities I've never witnessed before. And they go through it all, and the doctor talks about the mutants and gets the marshal to go unhinged. When the marshal goes unhinged, talking about the mutants should be eliminated and destroyed and killed and exterminated.
He accuses the marshal and Yeager of war crimes, basically. And then, first off, Yeager's taken aback. And there's this, for me, it seemed like a weird correlation with, like, I don't want to be racist, but it seemed like a correlation between, like, World War II Nazi scientists experimenting in chemical warfare and how they justified it in the name of research. And the doctor said, you know, you've killed off thousands of people, and he's like, I was only doing my scientific duty and experimenting in population control. And the doctor scoffs and goes, that's what you call genocide? And it seemed very...
You've only been following orders. That excuse has been used before.
Yeah, it seemed very Nazi-esque.
Right. It's not racist to point out racism.
It's just that he so happens to also be German, to be named Jaeger, and he has that like stereotypical
I think that was on purpose. I really do.
Yeah, there's this correlation. On purpose. And then he's also accusing the marshal of, you know, all his wrongdoings, and then the marshal goes, madcap.
At that point, Skarsgård, who in the caves had led several of the mutants back into the Transform Center, gotten up to Skyship 1, stumbles into the council.
So this happened twice. It's the trope of the investigator's about to call the meeting. He's like, I have to exonerate the marshal. And then Joe Grant and Cotton and Kai come in, you know, and then I object, and then it comes back around to where he's like, well, do you have any evidence? And it's like, where are these tablets you speak of? And the doctor's like, oh, I don't know where. I must have left them in the cave. And then very conveniently, then Sundergaard comes in. I object.
And he's got the tablets.
So the same thing happened twice. So perfectly timed. It's funny.
Right, but they're about to put an end to all of it. And then a mutant comes in. And the mutant, it looks scary, and is chased down and literally shot by the marshal.
Brutal.
Right, brutal. It's a horrible death, and
basically an execution.
Right, and children show all this death and genocide
because at this point, the mutants look scary, but you learn that they're intelligent, they can understand, they can even talk a little.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
And Sondergaard's communicating with them, and he got them to lead him to the doctor, and then he goes up in the elevator, he tries to convince them to come with him, they say, no, I'm scared.
Goes up, yeah.
And then one of them eventually goes up, and it's like, oh, he's a mutant. And then he walks in, and then everyone gets scared, and then the mutant gets frightened, and he runs away, and they just shoot him down, and it's so
Point blank executions.
Like, they shoot him once, he falls down, and then...
Oh, they shoot him twice, he falls down.
Like, straddles him and shoots him again.
And so the Marshal says, see what I have to deal with? I need you to release my men and put your men under my command.
And the Earth investigator inexplicably agrees. He's like, okay.
I guess he was scared about
the mutant. He was scared of the mutant, yeah.
So then, we just moved to episode 6, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So in episode 6, the Marshal, who has now been given command of the troops of the investigator.
Yeah, his men were released.
And his men have been released. Takes the investigator and puts him on arrest.
Yeah.
And he goes and he says, okay, Doctor, I'm going to kill your friends if you don't transform the planet into an atmosphere breathable by humans.
And only humans.
And only humans. Killing all Solarians. And the Doctor goes in and messes with the switches, reverses the polarity. And then they go and... yeah, cheers.
Reverse the polarity.
Reverse the polarity.
You ever see Tremors?
You
ever see Tremors? The movie with the Tremors.
A long
burrow underground. Well, there's like 6 of those movies now.
Yeah.
They're all terrible except for the first 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Which are great. But Tremors are these like ancient, dinosaur creatures that went into hibernation. And basically it's explained throughout the other movies that they have 4 different adaptations of, they adapt. They start off as these burrowing ground worms, and then they adapt into like these bipedal creatures, and then eventually they have wings and stuff.
Okay.
So I wonder about the Solarians is, they have these 500-year-long seasons and cycles. Yeah, so they're in the springtime, they're humans, basically humanoids, and then they're going into summer where the planet's too hot for humans to survive, so they adapt into these weird radioactive creatures. So I wonder like what their winter and fall adaptations might look like.
No clue. So
it's a cool concept. I like the race of the Solarians and the possibilities there, and I wish we would revisit them sometime, which I don't think we do.
No,
I don't think so.
Okay, so
but they're cool. I feel like there's a lot of material there. It seems like
a crap ton of material.
A rich backstory, and we only get to see a little part of it.
Right. So in the meantime, the Marshals recaptured Joe, Cotton, and Kai. And the Doctor was like, here, take this crystal thing, this biometric crystal that I found, give it to Kai.
Did we talk about that yet?
I'm talking about it right now.
It seems like when he found it in the cave. Did you talk about that?
Yes, I did.
Did it look like it was being held by a crystallized person?
Yes.
Was that a statue? Or was it
looked like a statue, yes.
Okay.
So he gives it to Sondergaard. Get this to Kai. Sondergaard goes, okay, I'll do if I can. And then the Marshal shows up and says, all right, take him and her, Sondergaard and Joe Grant, and send them back down to the radiation chamber with Kai. So it was perfect. So they go down there and...
he's like, okay.
He's like, okay. So Cotton and Kai are already there.
Yeah.
Kai's in bad shape with the radiation.
Yeah.
But then Sondergaard gives him the crystal, this green crystal thingy, biometric thingy. And the biometric crystal turns the radiation into metamorphic transformation energy. And Kai basically goes from the humanesque form into the mutation form into a very much...
it goes from a cocoon to a butterfly, a very pretty rainbow ghost.
Essentially, it's a multicolored ghost, but it's very much
radioactive apparition, ethereal thing.
Right, but it's very much
ramen noodles.
No, from the Watchmen.
Oh, you're thinking of the electric guy?
The all-powerful guy from the Watchmen.
Yeah,
it's very much like that. He's now, very powerful. I can do whatever I want, and he flies through walls. He flies through objects. He just knocks people out when he needs to.
It's crazy what radiation can do for you.
Well, he's fairly omniscient and omnipotent, and he comes in a laboratory where the marshal's trying to execute everybody, and he's like...
It's strange because he's still very much Kai, who's this headstrong, youthful person,
right? Yeah,
who wants independence and revenge, apparently. And then you see him transform into this beautiful, ethereal, ghost-like radiation creature, and he seems to almost...
but he still looks like Kai.
What do you call it? Transcend. He seems to transcend to this weirdly powerful creature, and you're like, oh, he's enlightened. He's this being of energy, and he's peaceful, and he's adapted into who he's supposed to be, and then no, he's still Kai because he walks into this room and goes, "You're gonna die, Marshall."
Which Marshall disappears.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere.
Love it.
He seemed, because his voice changed, he seemed like at peace and monotone and soothing. He's like, "It's all okay now." And he goes, "Hey, you're gonna die." It's like, oh.
That was perfect.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. So, the Marshal's dead. Everyone's released. The guards go back to their normal duties. The inspector names Cotton, because Skarsgård died. What's his face? Stubbs died in the defense of everything. Cotton's named the temporary commander of the Space One, or whatever it's called.
Skybase.
Yeah. Skybase One. Skybase. And pending its return to Earth.
There's a 90s movie moment of, what are you going to do now? And Sondergaard's like, I'm going to help these creatures out the best way I can. And they turn to Cotton, what are you going to do now? And he goes, I'm going to reverse my impact on these, I'm
going to help them and then return the space to Earth and
like,
my family. And but this was the early 70s, but yeah.
They're tying up all the...
Right, and the investigator goes, well, I need to talk to you guys on our return trip home on the Hyperion. And the Doctor and Joe escape back to Storage Room 4. They get in the TARDIS and they leave. Wait, did you talk about that scene where they're in the hold and they blow out Varan into space?
No, we didn't talk about...
You didn't talk about that? Okay.
I didn't get to that part yet. I was still in the...
Okay, in episode... Okay.
I left you to talk
about it. Hold on.
Blames me for not talking
about it. No. Alright. So we've covered everything. But back in episode 4, or early 5...
Remember Varan?
Yeah, there's a scene where Varan's men attack Skybase. And they're going through there trying to kill people. And they get to a point where they have Cotton and Stubbs prisoner, as well as Joe, right. And they're holding them prisoner.
This happened contextually.
Contextually.
They're leaving Sondergaard's research-led base. They're escaping the cavern because the cavern was caving in. and then the Doctor and Sondergaard stayed in the cavern to research the tablets. So you had Cotton and Stubbs and Joe Grant making it out of the caverns, and then they come across
this is gonna be so confusing.
Varn. No.
So confusing.
They come across Varn and his warriors that came after Varn forced the old guy to ring the gong.
Right, the 4 of them who were left in the entire village, and they're all mutating.
So Kai leads them to this village to where they're supposed to be safe, but nope, because Varen's there and he goes, I'm mutating, my life is over, but I'm going to enact my revenge. This is my revenge, and I'm a warrior, and you're going to be meat shields. So they cuff Cotton and Stubbs and Kai and Joe, and then they go back to the sky base, and they
end up all dying except for Varen in the hallway when they're met by the marshal. And they go into the storage room, and the marshal follows them. He ends up blowing a hole in the hull, and Varn flies off into space, and this
freezes.
Right, pretty dark and graphic death. And while the marshal, Joe, Kai, Stubbs, and Cotton all try to hold on, and they do, but it's pretty darn wonderfully dark. You know, if you want a children's show that'll make your children grow up, this is it. You know,
there are a lot of dark scenes in this serial.
Right, and
we didn't break.
It is what it should be.
A record and amount of deaths. There are a lot of deaths.
Well, there are thousands off camera.
Yeah, but in terms of darkness, some of these scenes were pretty graphic.
But you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. It is reality without having to pander to the modern crap of you can't handle it. No, people should be able to handle it. They handled it, you know.
I don't remember what movie it was, but I remember watching some sort of Victorian era movie. It was very old. I don't know if it was black and white or not, but it took place in I don't know the era in which the movie was supposed to take place in, but Victorian era. So they have the dad who's sick in bed, and I guess is like a spleen thing or something. Something needs to be removed. So he's about to have surgery, and the whole family's there, and they're about to usher the kids out. And they're like, "Oh, kids, it's time for you to leave. We're gonna have surgery." And the dad goes, "No, you should watch this." he goes, "They gotta grow up." So he's just exposing these kids to this open torso surgery just for them to grow up. So at some point, you have to be exposed to things to be desensitized to, life. Eventually you have to have some amount of exposure just to you don't want to be a snowflake.
Right. I don't know that movie, but okay.
I don't know what movie it was either, but that scene has stuck with me my entire life because I saw it when I was younger, and that doesn't show anything. But
younger? How young?
I was probably like 9. I saw it on TV. I mean, it doesn't show anything. It's just like this old black and white movie, but the concept stuck in my mind forever. Where the dad was telling the kids, "No, stay. You have to see this because you need to grow up." And I don't know. I guess that was impressionable to me as like an 8 or 9-year-old because I'm like,
that makes sense.
I guess I have to grow up at some point.
Yeah, you do.
He's like he's having his kids look at this so they'll mature,
All right, drink up. And then, what are your questions?
All right. Why in the world did the Time Lords even get involved in this whole situation?
Because they were trying to save that race and keep it from going to extinction.
Why? They're interfering with the timeline. And they've never done that we've seen before. Where there have been similar situations where there were similar consequences where the Doctor showed up. Like Daleks trying to exterminate people. But for some reason, we have the Time Lords going,
okay,
let's interfere. Let's send a message. That's gonna...
To be fair, in general, you are correct. But the Time Lords, especially the Doctor and other Time Lords, interfere a lot. They say they don't want to, but they do. And they're trying to help species and help the universe. And it happens quite frequently. Well, not too frequently on a galactic scale, but frequently enough that we see it a lot on the show.
Just as confused. So,
okay, so the mission statement is we shall not interfere, but they interfere when they have to.
They do.
They do.
But why did they have to?
Well, they had to keep the species from being wiped out. They had to help this planet, you know?
Why did they have to help the planet, though? Because that's life. Other planets have been consumed and conquered before. They didn't step in. I
don't know. It's never explained here why they had to do it here. But I would suspect to preserve this species that was unique in the universe.
I suspect it's not so much because of the species being important, but maybe the consequences of the species being extinct. There's some sort of butterfly effect on the timeline to where they're like,
possibly,
we don't care about these people, but we can't have them die, or else, you know, something. They wanted the Earth Empire to fail. That's the fixed point in time that they had to ensure happened, because otherwise they would have had a successful colonization, and maybe it would have prolonged the Earth Empire. Which
based on the fact they sent the tablets that explained what happened to the race of Solarians, I think it was to save that race and to perpetuate it, not to help Earth fail.
But in doing so, they did.
Oh, we don't know. We do not know.
Well,
this
the Doctor
one outlying colony that was going to be abandoned anyway, as opposed to anything super important.
But the Marshal is going to start a whole new...
Nah, it's not going to happen.
Because he's going to...
If they didn't send the Doctor, Jaeger would have failed anyway.
That's a good point.
Right, what's the next question?
So we talked about the Doctor's resistances. We had the Doctor resistant to poisons, and we talked about maybe his resistance to some poisons and not others, because we've seen him succumb to poison in the past. And in the very next episode, we had the Doctor saying the next episode, he was talking to Sondergaard about how he's not a human, and radiation doesn't affect me the same, it affects you. And he goes in this very irradiated room, super irradiated, which, you know, knocks out Sondergaard even though he has the suit on. It affected Joe Grant immediately. The Doctor's fine walking in.
Mostly,
but he seems a little
himself.
Yeah, he had. What does that mean? Because we had Hartnell showing up on Skaro, the Dalek planet, and he got really affected by radiation.
Yeah.
But he wasn't expecting it because the Geiger counter wasn't registering yet. So he had not prepared himself.
The Geiger counter registered just as
they walked out.
It was yeah.
Okay, so really my question is to compare and contrast the difference between Hartnell's Doctor not being very resistant to radiation, having not been prepared, versus Pertwee seeming to be very resistant to radiation.
Okay, it depends on the type of radiation.
Different types of radiation.
There are many different types of radiation. And it depends on, like I said, the preparedness of the Doctor. Time Lords may be able to prepare themselves with certain types of radiation if they know it's coming ahead of time. Maybe not others. I don't know. It's not fully explained.
I like to think that it's also because Hartnell's regeneration of the Doctor was very old, like much older than any other regeneration.
Well,
so yeah, the 400-year journal, which had to come from somewhere. 400-year journal?
It's much older than most of the Doctors.
This is probably his first regeneration. He had aged. He had a niece, supposedly.
Okay.
I just think Hartnell is very, very old.
He is, but there's at least one Doctor much older.
We haven't gotten to it.
We haven't gotten to that, and that is excluding all the timeless child crap.
Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet.
We'll get there eventually, but that's excluding that because that sucks. Sorry, just hate it.
Tell us how you really feel, Heather.
No, I can't because you two would banish if I told you how I really feel in the words.
They haven't already.
No, they haven't yet, but no. Timeless Child.
It's not popular with
not
the fandom.
Popular. Just sucks. But I'm still hoping it's just the Master lying and that it's not made canon. We shall see. Okay, so Revolution of the Daleks, the New Year's Day episode has occurred. I haven't seen it, as I haven't seen Series 12.
You haven't seen Series 12?
The latest series, I haven't seen it. I keep holding it.
Or like the whole season?
The whole season, the whole series. I've held it in my hands at Barnes & Noble like 4 times. I just can't bring myself to buy it. It's so bad.
Watch it so you know what happens. Oh, you've already watched it, you just haven't bought it?
No.
You haven't watched it?
I haven't watched it, I haven't bought it.
Watch it, maybe it'll change your opinion.
No, I know what happens and it's bad.
How do you know? Maybe it's like the first act sets the forest on fire, you hate it, but maybe it all comes together in the second act.
We shall see. Series 13 premieres this fall. If you get all of your Doctor Who news from our show,
I hope you
I'm
don't.
sorry, but there is now finally a date for the next Doctor Who release. It is March 2nd, I believe, but it is unfortunately
same cast
for the Revolution of the Daleks, the New Year's Day special for this year.
Oh, is that it?
That's it. It's just Whittaker and nothing else. Mm-hmm. The several animated episodes we're waiting on, several Blu-ray compilations of the old stuff, nothing, just the New Year's Day special.
How long until Doctor Who falls in the public domain? 19...
In the US?
Is it like a worldwide thing?
No, it's different based on country.
Because in the US it's like 99 years, right?
Well,
so like
it varies. We leave at 90 to 95 years. But it's always
20 years
changing. Maybe? It's always changing. But right now you're figuring about 1953. Pardon me, 2053.
Oh, that's longer than that.
Yeah, it's
about 30 years from now. Then we can make our own game.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but you're right. You're right. There's a whole lot of that, and it's crap. And that's why Sherlock Holmes is now public domain.
Yeah, they're fighting that. Which, I mean...
But it's done. It's done.
They're making the argument, sure, the first book came out this year, and that's when the timeline started. But then they're making the argument, well, his character wasn't fully developed until after this book.
Right. But
so it should start there. Done. And it's like, have you not made enough money off of this yet? And she spilled.
It's done.
Yeah, which I'm not really one of the big proponents for the people that argue against copyrights, because I'm like, well, original content is better, and basically I'm okay.
You sure?
Okay. Maybe a little. Let me fix it up.
Mm.
Thank you.
Drink it if you will. It's all good.
That's good right there.
Say when.
What was?
So say 8:30.
Anyway, I'm not a big fan of the people arguing, oh, copyright should be much, much shorter because we want things to enter public domain sooner so we can, profit off of this original concept. It's like, just make something new. They're like, oh, we want to make our own Star Wars films, Doctor Who films, our own Harry Potter films. It's like, just make your own sci-fi.
It should be closer to 50 years.
But yeah, I don't care.
The 90 years it is now is a bit ridiculous.
I don't care. I don't think it is. I don't mind the person's family profiting off of their
to an extent, but Disney has extended it much longer than it needs to be.
Yeah, I don't. But what if it went on forever?
No.
I don't care that. I don't care.
All right. What are your questions?
Make something original. Come up with your
own. Exactly.
All we have now are reboots and relaunches and revivals and sequels and prequels. Third book's unnecessarily stretched into 2 parts for the extra movie.
Alright, so what are your questions?
I think we just covered them. We talked about the Time Lord's involvement. We talked about the Doctor's resistances to poison and radiation. We talked about something else. Oh, the Empire of the Time Lords, and then the fruits of technology. And we talked about the weird crystal statue holding the stone, which looked like a person that would been crystallized, and I don't know if it's a statue or.
It's never explored. He goes in, he gets it, he leaves.
But other than that, there's a lot of confusion in sci-fi concepts going on in this serial. There's a lot of plot and developments and discoveries, and it's fast-paced and kind of slow. Not a whole lot of questions, but a little difficult to keep up with. But I think we just about covered everything.
It's a good serial.
This is a good serial. I really liked it. I like the villain. I like the characters. I like the development. I like the plot. I like the twists. I like the turns. I liked it. I highly recommend it. If you haven't seen Doctor Who, The Mutants, we recommend
you should see it.
Yeah.
All right. So
if you're more into the new stuff, the New Age Doctor Who, this might be a good segue into the old stuff.
Maybe.
What would you say? What did you say was your? I haven't gotten to it yet, have I?
What?
You said you have the 2 serials that you show people wanting to get into Doctor Who, and the Weeping Angels is for the new stuff. And
No. Well, if you're looking at the new stuff, the 21st century stuff, it's Blink.
Blink, yeah.
With the Weeping Angels. If you're looking at the old stuff, the 20th century stuff, it's City of Death.
I haven't seen that yet. That's the 4th Doctor?
That's 4th Doctor.
Your favorite Doctor?
Yeah, my favorite Doctor.
Or The Mutants, because it's a good one.
It's a good one, but it's not worthy
of
City of Death. But, yeah, I mean, this is a really, really, really good serial, an underrated serial, but it's not worthy of the top spots, You
don't think this will make the serial of the season? When we vote on our favorite cereal?
I don't know. We shall see. Wait. Did we finish off and vote on the best cereal of the 3rd Doctor?
The 3rd Doctor? We haven't finished the 3rd Doctor.
This is the 2nd Doctor.
We did.
We did.
The War Games.
The War Games.
Yeah.
Okay, I can go with that. So
it was a toss-up. It was super close.
Yeah, so have we done any seasons of the 3rd Doctor?
Nope, the last one was season 6, The War Games.
So, wait, we haven't visited any seasons of...
We haven't done anything with Pertwee.
The 3rd Doctor? None?
Nope.
Okay, well...
Are we doing that tonight?
We should. Yeah, we should.
We can do it next time.
What? You know what we're doing now?
We're not prepared.
What?
We'll save it for next time. We'll be ready in advance.
This is towards the end of the 3rd season. We can do seasons 1, 2, and 3 of the 3rd Doctor.
We don't have to do them all at the same time.
No, we'll do them in separate.
Because we still have 2 more episodes.
2 more seasons.
2 more seasons. Yeah, we got tons of time. So next time, let's talk about next time. I'm super excited for next time, but more excited for the time after next.
Okay, next time is the Time Monster.
Time Monster. I'll take it back.
With the Brigadier.
Yeah, that's why I was excited. The Brigadier's coming back in Benton.
Yep.
But I was even more excited because you said the one after that is
the 3 Doctors.
10-year anniversary?
The 10-year anniversary, the beginning of season 10. Alright. Have fun!
Alright, we'll see you next time.
Bye. We'll see you next week. Hopefully next week.
Next week. For sure next week.
For sure next week.
For sure next week. Where we'll talk about the Time Monster. Cookies. Cookie Monster.